Curt Lawson, the Deputy Police Chief and Public Information Officer of the West Bloomfield Police Department. Curt, thank you very much for joining us today again on the MegaCast.
Well, nice to be with you again, Dave, and nice to see you, Tyler.
Thank you.
It is good to have you. And, when this whole thing started, Curt Lawson, I didn't think we would be talking about these kind of issues here, but we are. So we'll get to the coronavirus stuff in a couple of minutes. To the issue that Tyler and I were talking about a minute ago, there have been a lot of protests, of course. More and more, they seem to be more peaceful protests, but communities have imposed these curfews. And then last night in Detroit, they've got the curfew, but law enforcement doesn't start arresting people, has been happening on previous nights. What are your thoughts about it? I mean, as a law enforcement official, how do you deal with a situation like that?
Well, I think you have to read the room. Certainly in Detroit, they've had a lot of protests pretty much every night. They had some protests that there's some individuals that infiltrated what was relatively a peaceful march and caused some violence. Some things were broken. And I think that's why they put that curfew or the option for the curfew into effect. And I think James Craig, the chief of the Detroit Police Department, he kind of read the room last night. It was a peaceful march, and I don't believe that he certainly didn't want to escalate things. So he decided to get out of his patrol car and to march with the protesters at the rally. And I think that was the correct decision. So, and he said, the curfew is kind of like another tool in our toolbox. And he felt, this rally is going well, and I'm going to get out and I'm going to show my solidarity with what they're trying to say and what they're trying to do. And I think that was the correct decision. And I think we've seen that in many cities where law enforcement has gone out. They have met with the protesters, they've met with the leaders, and they've tried to make that connection. And really what law enforcement needs to do right now is we need to listen. We need to show restraint, and we need to listen to the concerns of the protesters, because you know what? There's a lot that we can improve on in law enforcement, and that's how we're going to move forward, is by learning and improving what we do on a daily basis.
Curt Lawson is with us. He is the Deputy Police Chief and Public Information Officer in West Bloomfield Township, joining us today in the MegaCast. And, Curt, it's complicated. I assume that when you were trained as an officer and as you try to impart your knowledge on those younger officers coming up through your department, you talk about how to make a decision in a matter like this, but reading to the book, the book that you must all have somewhere. In the book, in the police officer book, does it say part of your job is to interpret and decide when to enforce?
Absolutely. Discretion is a very important part in law enforcement. And that is why it's essential that police departments across the country, that they attract and retain the top 1 or 2% of the people that want to be police officers. You have got to hire police officers that are in it for the correct reason. They understand discretion, they understand restraint, they understand explicit bias. They understand that we want to de-escalate. We don't always have to be the winners. We don't always have to charge in there. We have to kind of read the situation and be able to react. So we need smart, intelligent people. And, one of my concerns in law enforcement throughout this country is that the playing field is not the same. What we have, the product we have in West Bloomfield, which is a very, very high product, I think one of the best in Oakland County, that is not what you see nationwide. And I'd like to see the bar raised as far as education, training, more consistent training, and certainly better benefits and pay for police officers throughout the country.
Well, it goes without saying that it seems like police officers, all the first responders, teachers, they're not at the top of our pay scale here in the country, so that's good, and hopefully some of that will come out of this, and we'll end up with a lot of good, some new policies. We certainly have enough case studies over the past week of how to and how not to do things. I thought it was interesting last night watching the national news, seeing how they handled the curfew in New York. very different situation than downtown Detroit, but they had a peaceful protest. But there they decided to very peacefully arrest some of the people that were violating the curfew. And it was a one step certainly more aggressive than what was done in Detroit. But it wasn't done in a confrontational way. It was, the protesters kind of walked up very peacefully, allowed themselves to be cuffed. As we have seen at protests over my entire lifetime, part of the act of protesting and civil disobedience is actually getting arrested. So that can happen peacefully. Well, I see you're smiling, but doesn't that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that's where we need to teach our officers. Let's have a little bit of a discussion and converse with the individual and let them know exactly what we want to do so there's no misunderstandings. Maybe this person wants to get arrested. Okay, so I'm going to explain to that individual exactly what's going to happen now. You're going to stand up. You're going to put your hands behind your back. I'm going to do this. Then we're going to do that. And just explain the situation. I think that brings down the tension, gets rid of that misunderstanding that might occur.
Curt Lawson joining us today. He is a deputy police chief and public information officer, West Bloomfield, joining us, and we appreciate talking to you again today, Curt. So we saw activity in Troy earlier this week, and I think the Troy Police Department handled the protest very, very well. There was an unfortunate incident there with a driver that drove right into the protesters and was immediately arrested. But other than that, police responded very well, taking a knee along with the protesters, and we've seen a lot of officers doing that all around the country. So I thought they handled that really well. But that was, I think, one of the earlier of many activities that are going on in virtually every community in the state of Michigan, and certainly all across Metro Detroit, including in all of the suburban communities. I don't know if you saw it in the news last night, Curt, but there was even a group of people, and it was almost all white suburbanite kids, but even like little kids, like I think they were like between 6 and 12 years old, walking through Grosse Pointe yesterday. So there's a variety of different activities going on, and they're all peaceful and they're all good. So, but that doesn't mean that some bad can't happen, and I know you got to be on guard, right, throughout all this, even though things are going in the right direction.
Absolutely, and I think that law enforcement, police departments within Oakland County are some of the best, and I think we are setting a great example, really, for the nation. Troy Police Department did a great job. They met with the leaders of the rally ahead of time. They set the ground rules. They fully understood what the rally leaders wanted to accomplish, where the march was going to start, where it was going to end. They had the proper security, but they had a fluid plan. So if things changed, which they did, they had an incident with a gentleman that struck an individual that was at the rally with his vehicle. They were able to handle that without things getting out of control. So you have to plan for multiple different situations, and because your goal at the end of the day is you want to keep the people that are protesting safe, you want to keep your team safe, and you want to keep the community safe. So if you can allow all that to happen and everyone can remain safe, then it's a win.
So, and to that end, I understand that there are additional rallies scheduled for this week, including one on Friday in West Bloomfield. What do you know about that? What can you tell us?
So there are multiple rallies throughout Oakland County. My understanding, there's 24 rallies within about a 72-hour period. So it's certainly going to put some strain on law enforcement within Oakland County. But we do have a rally here in West Bloomfield. I met with the rally leaders 2 days ago, myself and my staff. We were very impressed with their leadership and what they're trying to accomplish. And they want to have a peaceful rally right here in West Bloomfield. And they want to bring attention to police reform. And they made it very clear it's not about the West Bloomfield Police Department. They don't have any issues with us. Actually, they told us on several occasions they've heard nothing but great things about us, which I appreciated. And that just goes to the hard work over the past 25 years from the men and women within this police department. But their rally is going to be on this Friday from 12:30 to 4. And they're going to begin this rally in the area of Maple and Orchard. So our residents should expect an increased level of law enforcement presence. But we totally expect this to be a peaceful rally.
All right, and I know that you're going to have plenty, as you already said, law enforcement presence, just in case there are some other people that show up that have nothing to do with what the organizers are intending. So you're always on guard for that kind of thing. But we expect it's going to be a very peaceful day and a good opportunity to continue this national dialogue. You say there are going. Did you say there are going to be 72 different events in our area? Did I mark that down correctly?
So I may have misspoke, but it's going to be 23 different events. 23 or 24 events within the 72-hour period. And just to be clear, we have spent the last 2 days late into the night planning for this rally to make sure that it's a safe rally. They're going to walk from Maple and Orchard down Orchard Lake northbound to the West Bloomfield Police Department, where they're going to be able to give speeches. They're going to be able to liaison with the chief and myself. And it's our goal is to meet them here and to listen to their concerns and have a great dialogue. And we're actually looking forward to it.
All right. Well, we will be there as well for our West Bloomfield listeners. We'll be there and cover as much live as we possibly can. And for folks around the rest of Oakland County who are tuning in, I'm sorry I got the numbers wrong. I knew I heard 72 in there somewhere. But to 72 events, that would be a lot. 23 different activities. So Curt Lawson, Deputy Police Chief, Public Information Officer, West Bloomfield, it's got to be impacting a lot of other communities here in Oakland County.
Well, I think most law enforcement departments have upstaffed, so we're helping each other out. We certainly are going to have other communities on standby if we need some help, but we have a pretty robust amount of individuals that work within our police department, so we believe we're going to be able to handle it. But certainly there's going to be some other law enforcement partners on standby if we need them. But we want to ensure the residents, our business owners, that we're going to be there. We're going to be there in force, but we're going to be with them. They're going to be marching, and we're going to be right alongside with them. And we're expecting this to be peaceful and no property damage or anything like that.
Do you expect that this is just going to be on Orchard Lake Road, and they're going to make their way up Orchard Lake and Walnut during the middle of Friday afternoon traffic?
Well, certainly Orchard Lake Road traffic is a concern for us, and that's why we're going to have so many officers there. Because if they do wander out into the road, we certainly don't want anyone to get injured or hurt by a passing motorist. So if we have to shut down the road or we have to shut down an intersection, we certainly will push that information out to the public. That's my job and my team's job, and we will do that. We'll keep everyone informed. And certainly our business owners are more than welcome to contact me with any further questions.
All right, Curt. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you sharing this with us and your thoughts and dialogue. And I just want to go back and just ask you one more comment. So I talked to
Sure.
Chief Mike Patton, the Chief of Police in West Bloomfield, and a lot of other law enforcement officials. We talked to the folks in Troy after their day on Monday. And, I think Chief Patton said it really well. He said that he was, after all this happened, he said, darn it all, Dave. He didn't say darn it all, but he said, I'm mad. He said, I'm mad. And I just have been asking every other law enforcement official I've talked to since that interview, does that best encapsulate your feelings as well?
Exactly. The chief and I, we're very different people. We have a lot of different views on things, but we always kind of meet in the middle. But I'll tell you what, on this, 100%, we were both extremely angry. We were disappointed. We were saddened. We worked so very hard here at West Bloomfield to with our team to create what we've created, and it really undermines us in a lot of ways. And as leaders, the chief and I, we are committed to being part of the solution to this problem. And I have walked around this police department, have talked to all of our young officers, our men and women, but we're all on the same page. They're absolutely horrified by the incident that happened to Mr. Floyd, and it never has been, and never will be acceptable here. Any sort of racial profiling, any sort of excessive force, and certainly if that did occur here, we would deal with it swiftly, quickly, and that person would no longer work here.
All right. Well, Curt, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today. We will be talking. And just one more time, I want to let you know, and let everyone listening know that during this event, we will be broadcasting live. You and I will be in touch. If there's anything you want to share during the time, you got to get an announcement out to folks. We will be there, and we're going to do our very best to be out and hear the thoughts of those that are in West Bloomfield. Welcome everybody with open arms. And you know what? Darn it all, let's make this, there you go again, let's make this a really productive afternoon of learning and turn all of this crisis and tragedy into something good. Curt, thank you very much.
We certainly hope that these protests lead to some positive change, and we're glad to be a part of it.
Curt Lawson, thank you very much. He is the Deputy Police Chief and Public Information Officer of the West Bloomfield Police Department.